coverage yesterday, huh?
What?
I said we got pretty good coverage yesterday.
Ready? Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting for the City of Eustis. It is 5:30 p.m. It's April the 16th, 2020. Due to the Governor's Executive Order of 20-69 issued on March the 20th, 2020, we are meeting as a city, or as a board, without public present. However, if you would like to speak on anything that is on our agenda for a board this afternoon, you are able to email the city clerk at cityclerk@eustis.org, and she will be able to send your messages to us. If you are going to email in the subject line, if you would please put the resolution number that you would like to speak on. We will be glad to listen and try to answer things as we can. At this time, Mary, is our quorum present?
Yes, sir.
And since we have some folks joining us by telephone, I'm going to ask that you please call the roll.
Mr. Moran?
Aye.
Ms. Aliberti?
Here.
Aye.
Ms. Lee?
Aye.
Ms. LaHoop Smith?
Testing.
Mr. Holland?
Here. Thank you so
Correct
much.
mine to here.
Thank you so much. Before us, board members, we have approval of minutes from our January the 16th, 2020 Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. What's the will of this board?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any discussion? Not hearing any. Roll call, please.
Mr. Moran?
Aye.
Ms. Aliberti?
Aye.
Ms. Lee?
Aye.
Ms. LaHoop Smith? Aye. Mr. Holland?
Aye. Tom, we're going to turn things over to you.
Do we want to acknowledge?
I was about to say, I apologize, Mr. Kontarakis. Are you here as well?
Yes, I'm here. Yes,
Thank you.
no problem.
Evan, thanks for joining us.
No, I appreciate it.
Testing.
Ron, we're going to turn it over to you now or to Tom? All right.
Thank you. I don't have a formal presentation prepared for this evening. We had discussed this at the prior CRA meeting. There were some concerns about the overall economy, some concerns about various ways to move forward as far as being a matchmaker with the current property owner and the city playing the role of facilitator versus the city purchasing the property. And so I have prepared a fiscal analysis. There were some questions about what could be developed on the property and what would the fiscal impact be for that. I apologize, and that just went out today, but you should have a fiscal analysis. There are some assumptions that were made because we don't know at this point what the project will be eventually, but we made some market-based assumptions, and the fiscal analysis shows that if 2 of the 3 blocks were developed and 1 of the 3 blocks were reserved as public parking, the fiscal impact would be approximately $200,000 per year in revenue to the CRA. And so, again, with a hotel development, and then on the southernmost block, the development assumption was buildings that would match the rest of downtown Eustis. And with those 2 blocks developed, it would result in about $200,000 in revenue for the CRA annually. So that's an idea of what the CRA can expect with some market rate development. And then at the last meeting, there was some discussion about whether the CRA was in a position to do this. I would like to, in talking about maybe concerns about the larger economy, the CRA is a tool for promoting redevelopment. And so the CRA is not able to do certain things that the general fund can do. For example, the CRA is to promote redevelopment. And so we wouldn't be using CRA for, say, first responder pensions. We wouldn't be using it for salaries for staff. And so, while there is some uncertainty with the larger economy, and we did talk last meeting about being cautious in moving forward with the referendum projects because we didn't want to dip into general fund reserves, this project would not do that. This project would not be dipping into general fund or general fund reserves. It would be funded by CRA, which the purpose of CRA is to promote redevelopment. And it also, the debt service potentially generated by the project could be funded by the CRA. There's sufficient capacity, but the goal here is redevelopment. And so the goal is not long-term carrying of the property, but if there is, if we are required to hold it for the short term until we can get a quality developer in the project that we want, the CRA has the capacity to do that, and it does not affect the general fund. And so, again, I don't necessarily have a formal presentation prepared. I hope I've addressed some of the questions that you had. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Staff continues to recommend that we move forward with the purchase.
Thank you, Tom. Evan, would you have any questions of Tom at this time?
No, I'm fine.
Thank you. Marie, will you have any questions?
Yes, what do you consider short term for us as far as being able to create this package and then turn around and sell it to a developer?
This is Ron. We are doing a 5-year loan with a 20-year amortization. So we're hoping to have the properties sold within that 5-year period.
That doesn't make me feel very good.
Well, one of the other questions that came up previously was, has there been interest in the property? And I'd like to address that, yes, we have had some interest in the property. Some of those interested parties have tried to work directly with the current property owners. They've also approached us. And so there is interest. This is in an opportunity zone, which means there are federal tax benefits involved, but there are timelines, and you have to develop in certain timeframes to benefit from the opportunity zone. And so what we're hearing from interested parties is that there is interest, there is real estate money waiting to be invested, and there are timelines to get that money invested. And so I think also to partially answer your question, I don't think we're looking to, we would have to, the state law requires that we advertise the opportunity. And so we have to advertise publicly that this property is available. And then we would probably solicit proposals or solicit qualifications and see who's interested and what the quality of their development team. And so we do need to do certain things moving forward, but there is interest. There's interest from folks that want to move forward relatively quickly, and our goal is to not hold this long term. But I think it's difficult to say today exactly how long we're going to own the property.
Right. So what's the advantage then of us taking ownership instead of them going directly through the real estate company or who has it for sale?
Well, the benefit of us doing it, of owning it, is that you have unity of ownership. Right now, any developer that would want to cross-develop the 3 parcels as one project is going to have to deal with 2 legal entities, one being the Eustis Partners and the other being the foundation. And the structure of the deal could be made more difficult given the diversity of ownership of the 3 parcels. With the unity of ownership with the city, we can effectuate a sale much more consistently. Obviously, we're dealing with one entity. We have the ability to structure other components of the project that private individuals don't have the ability to do.
And then are we paying them what it was listed at? Are we paying the listing price?
I don't know if there is, strictly speaking, a listing price right now, but we are paying below appraisal. We conducted appraisals for the 3 blocks. Those appraisals came in at a little bit above $3 million, I think $3.4 million. So we're paying below appraisal. I don't know if they necessarily have a public listing price.
Additionally, there's about $400,000 of impact fee credits, both toward the school and the roads, that go with the property. So for all intents and purposes, we're receiving about $3.8 or $3.9 million in value for the $3 million.
Okay, can I throw one more thing in there?
Yes, ma'am.
The sellers aren't having to pay a commission if it's being sold to us. Is that correct?
We are not paying a commission. The current owners do have an agreement, a listing agreement, but that's between them and their commercial broker. We're not involved in that, and nor are we paying a commission.
Okay. So I was going to say maybe they'd cut us a little bit of slack on that, but you're saying we're not paying the commission. They're paying the whole commission to the broker, correct?
Correct, and we've not been involved in the details of that, but yes.
Okay. Well, I just thought maybe they'd, kind of out of the goodness of their hearts want to give us a little discount, for the city. But if you can check into that, I'd appreciate that. I have given up my portion of the proceeds of a sale, my commission before. So I'm just saying, I don't know if they want to do it or not.
I don't understand, Marie. If we're not paying a commission, who are we talking to?
Well, the commission's being paid. It's being paid through the
Sale.
the property owners. It's being paid through them. So they're going to include that in the cost of cost of the sale. It's always tacked on. So that's what I was saying. Maybe they would cut us some slack with that.
Okay.
But we don't know if they're paying a commission or not. Our guess is that they are, because there's been an active listing, and we were not aware of any exclusions in their listing agreement for any parties where they would not have to pay a commission to the broker. So I'm guessing there's going to have to be something paid by them to the real estate company.
Right. Okay, as long as it's on the record then.
Anything else, Marie?
No?
All right. Bob?
Yeah, Marie, you're reading my mind. I think she's asked a lot of the questions I had too, especially why are we the sort of the middleman? Why not the realtor or the owners right now dealing with the potential for a hotelier to be there? And that's still a little bit shaky for me. But a couple other things first. You said there were some reports. I didn't get them. The reports on the fiscal impact? Is that something that's here
It
now?
was an email. You received an email
When did we get
today.
it?
You
Right
got it?
about 5.
I was
4:45.
showering, so I didn't see it.
That was earlier than that.
I didn't see, well, anyway, I stopped looking at it at a certain point, so I didn't get it. And also, you mentioned one other report? Oh, the appraisal? Oh, this is the appraisal, and you mentioned the fiscal report?
What you have in front of you is the fiscal analysis.
The appraisal was provided to you at the first meeting,
Okay.
which came in at about 3.4 ton.
I know our staff may be limited in what they can disclose, but this is so little information for us to be able to do a prognosis, a forecast for the next 5 years. I understand what it means, but it doesn't do anything for us to make us feel like, wow, this is a great deal. We don't know, other than what you're saying to us might happen. So it's hard.
We're basing that on discussions we've had with the potential hotel developer, and taking into account the possibility of the lot closest here to City Hall, that being developed out with three-story buildings with commercial space, and obviously 2 stories of apartments on there. So that was based, as Tom said, we made some assumptions based on what we know are real values of the proposed hotel, plus some potential value for development on the balance of the lot closest here. So we're anticipating about $200,000 a year in new CRA revenues from the two projects when those are developed. So we'll see an annual payment to us of $200,000 a year under those project scenarios.
Okay, all right. And I think also, why don't we have the listing price? We don't see it anywhere, it's not listed anywhere?
I don't think they just had it, an availability of it.
Was there any negotiating with this number? Let me just tell you, because I've been looking through this for the last 3 weeks, it seems, and the payment on those properties was pretty slight, and they're looking for 3 times what they paid for it. My understanding is the parking lot was sold for $1. The other 2 lots, 30 and 35, were sold for $950,000. So they're looking for $3 million. And in effect, they've held us hostage since 2012. It's obvious it's been a bone of contention for all of us as commissioners and our staff too, frustrated. You guys were frustrated when I was mayor, putting up a sign up there, trying to get that developed. And so many things fell by the wayside that I wonder if it's fair for the community to be paying as much money as they're asking for that property. I would love to see what the listed value was and then negotiate from that, if the commission can negotiate like we did for the drive-in theater. I think we need to have some sort of skin in the game too. And being held hostage for 8 years as a city, I think that's pretty harsh. There's no taxes collected, very little taxes were collected, so.
Well, keep in mind, the issue is that there's 2 legal entities, and the $1 million going for the parking lot to the foundation, yes, the foundation was given those properties.
Mm-hmm.
And the foundation, obviously, is a not-for-profit, so they're not making true profit. They had some carrying costs. They actually have a demolition cost, I believe, on the
Right.
hospital, correct, Tom? So they have some debt that they have to pay off in terms of the demolition and the carrying and costs of maintaining those property. Now, the other 2 properties are held by private individuals. They assumed the $900 and some thousand in debt of the 2 lots that were from the foundation. So they've been carrying that for probably 10 years now. So they've obviously had some carrying costs. And obviously, the real estate market has changed in the last 10 years. Obviously, things have appreciated. We have an appraisal that's up to date based on real-time, real market conditions at the time of the appraisal 3 weeks ago that shows those properties as valued at $3.4 million.
And then, so how do we assume, can we assume then that the price that we're buying it for, we could recoup, not necessarily just in the long term, but what's the commitment from the city for the hotelier? Is there something there that, why are they more apt to go with us rather than the current seller? Are we in a position, well, I know we can't talk about the potential, but is that what we're intending on doing? So would it be that the city puts up some money and probably sells it for less?
We don't know. We haven't had any specific discussions on what they would like to do with, as far as a purchase price. Obviously, our goal is to recoup as much of the value of the property as we can. Obviously, generate development specifically on those sites that would generate new revenues for the city, and also create an economic stimulus for the downtown and Eustis as a whole that would generate some ancillary development and investment in the downtown to bring a new overall growth to the downtown area.
Now, I understand all that too, Ron. I appreciate that. I think it's just so frustrating to see that that's been going on for so long with very little movement from those partners, the Eustis Partners or Lake Community Foundation. I think it's all kind of and difficult. It's coming to a point where obviously I'm in favor of doing something there. I'm just not in favor of that high a price. And I'm not sure if even tonight, as we pass it on, if we do pass it on to the commission, that maybe we do.
To clarify, you're not passing it to the commission. If the CRA votes for the agreement, that's the final.
Oh, it is here right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The $1 million for the east piece of that property, or the west piece of that property, the parking lot, doesn't so much of that money have to come back into helping the residents of Eustis with the agreement from the foundation itself?
That is the mission of the foundation, is to provide assistance to the Eustis community. So they They have a not-for-profit foundation that has a requirement that their funding used to benefit the city of Eustis, the Eustis community. So the $1 million going towards that property isn't going into private hands. It's going into a foundation of which a lot of people you know are on there. George Warren, Ann Rao, Tom Hoffmeister, a lot of other people are on that, good people in the community. They're going to be making decisions with that money to benefit the community.
I've explored the website, and quite honestly, I couldn't find anything on it. I saw an advertisement for payday loans, but I didn't see any financial reports. I saw the board of directors, and I understand what you're saying, and I still find you credible. I think that's okay. It might happen. I just don't see it on paper. I don't see it on their website. I don't know for sure how much the Community Foundation is assisted. So from that perspective, and I know they also have to pay for maybe the demolition that occurred at the...
They have some debt that they're going to need
for
to
doing that
still
too.
cover.
And so I guess my impression is that at some point, we need to figure out, because 2 weeks ago when I was here, we talked about the gym, about the referendum, and how we need to do something for the east side. And actually, not only for the east side, but for all of Eustis to be able to have a full-size gym. And I agreed with the commission eventually that, in effect, we can't exercise any more debt, or we shouldn't be exercising any debt at this point. So I sometimes think we may want to discuss this somewhat further, postpone it at least, and not for another quarter or so, but have a special meeting with our CRA before we actually make this commitment at this point. I think there's still some questions that I still need to have answered, and that is, can we negotiate a price? And who negotiates that price?
Our discussions were with them was $3 million was the price. Did we have discussions about a lower price? Absolutely we did. But they said the value of the property is $3 million. Now keep in mind, we're getting the 3 lots plus about $400,000 in value of impact fee credits.
Right. I understand how important that is too for the buyer of that property, whoever's going to develop it. But the bottom line is that the city is going to really not gain from that, because the developer will pick that up, and we don't see it. That's not money, that's not cash in the city's hands. So it's a little frustrating, because I can see a project that's worth $3.8 million, and that as we go along and move 1 or 2 of those lots, that we in effect would sell it for a lot less. They end up with probably share a third of those impact fees according to those 3 lots. And it just kind of, it's hard to figure out how much it's going to cost us, and not knowing for sure if it's going to be feasible. If they've attempted it for 8 years, I don't know why they weren't successful. And so the city, in fact, will be bailing them out. But in the same token, we will be assisting our own city to move forward. So it's a really perplexing position we're in at this point. I think one of the comments we heard from too was one of our city commissioners from, I think, Mr. Krasmundsmy. I don't remember exactly his term of office, but he wrote a letter that specifically talked about the losses that the city would suffer. I think that's really something we need to look at too. I'm not sure if the general public has an opportunity to see that, but I encourage them to look at that too. He brought together some good points, and those are some of the considerations that I had too. And I think they've been answered tonight. But I'm okay at this point.
Okay. Karen, any comments?
I think it's the same that I've said in the past. You know, I've been on commissions when we've had the ability, the possibility, and we passed it by, and here we sit. Like you said, 12 years later, here we sit. And if we have control, if we can facilitate, we have an economic director here who is working diligently to make this happen. I think if we get it sold within 3 to 5 years, that would be amazing. And if development starts and we start getting the tax dollars off of that property back that we've never had, then, you know, I would like to see us move forward.
And to clarify again, you had mentioned the issue of taking on debt. Keep in mind, as Tom indicated, CRA revenues are not operational revenues. They're programmatic revenues. The commitment of these dollars to this project will not affect the city's general operations at all.
I understand that too, yeah.
These are programmatic dollars. So the concern about debt from that standpoint, as compared to the other two projects, are completely different.
Well, the argument's on the other side, though. The CRA money could be used to do the gym, and that's all I'm saying. So I want people to be really clear, because I think it's not even a philosophical issue. I'm looking at it from the two perspectives, understanding what my colleagues are talking about, understanding what could happen in the future, and I am willing to take a chance at that, at what you're offering. I'm a little more comfortable with the way you're telling us this tonight, a little bit more. Having talked to some of the developers in our city, I'm more encouraged by their comments about what it could do. And I am not going to tell developers how to run the business, or I'm going to take a lot of what they're giving me as pure professional knowledge they've gained from experience, just as I hope people will gain some insight into what my experience has been in government. So from my perspective, it doesn't sound like a good deal, but I think Commissioner Loop-Smith is right. We need to move forward with something here to move this city forward, and I think it's a good idea. But everybody needs to know that we're all taking, and I'm not so sure it's a gamble. I was define the two. A gamble is you're not knowing what you're going to do. I think it's a risk. We know what we're going to get into, so it's just not throwing a die. So I'm more comfortable with it, but I just want to make sure the commission knows that I am somewhat hesitant, but I think it's a good idea to move forward, and I'm okay.
Miss Emily.
Yes. I was wondering, if we were to purchase it, how would we sell parcels? For instance, if there's a hotel, will they be able to purchase the land, or do we give it to them? How does that work? How do you decide, sell it off?
There are a number of scenarios that could be, I mean, somebody could come to us and want to do a 99-year lease with us. That's a possibility. The possibility is they could come in and ask for the property, as Commissioner Warren said, at a discounted price. But at that point, we wouldn't offer them any CRA assistance, because obviously their assistance would be in the form of a discounted property.
I meant to ask that question. That's right.
So
Okay. I forgot.
there's numerous ways that a project could be structured. Obviously, we're going to structure a deal that we feel is in the best interest of the city. In this case, we're looking at the potential of $200,000 a year in new revenue to the city from the CR, just from those two properties. So the question is what are the other ancillary benefits that we could have in terms of new visitors to the community, other growth? Obviously, those opportunities are endless with some of the other properties that we have available in the downtown. Again, we will structure a deal. Are we going to grab the first project to come along because we want to get something done? Absolutely not. It's going to have to make financial and development sense for the city.
Do we have a vision? Do we have a vision? Do we know what we want it to look like, or what we're aiming towards? Do we have that?
The city's downtown plan has always envisioned the redevelopment of those three lots. Obviously, my individual goal in looking at the opportunities in the almost 5 years I've been here was obviously I think that the best thing could happen for us are where we're headed right now, a hotel on the lot that's being considered for a hotel. The other would be on this closer lot here, obviously commercial spaces on the first floors and 3 or 4 stories of apartments for more downtown living. We have individuals right now in the queue, so to speak, that are interested in doing that. And we think we can, by putting this in our hands, we could effectuate the development much more quickly than the private individuals, because we have this disjointed group of individuals. You have 2 organizations that own the property. One's a not-for-profit entity. One is a group of gentlemen who are in their fading years. They don't have the energy.
No.
They don't have the energy.
What age is that?
They're at a point in their life that they don't
There you go.
have the time or ability or desire to actively push and promote these properties that a normal property owner can. Frankly, all of them really, don't have the ability to effectuate a deal as quickly or as efficiently as we can here with the city.
So what happens if, okay, we get the hotel, or the hotel decides not to, and in 5 years, we still have this property? What happens?
What happens, we keep trying to do it. We have the cash flow to pay the annual debt service on it. The goal is to obviously do a 5-year loan. We're probably going to get money around 2% right now, given the way things are in the interest market. So we're looking
I was
at
just going to ask that.
we're looking at less than $200,000 a year in annual debt service on surplus revenues annually coming in on the CRA of about $450, Tom?
Yep.
So right now, we have unallocated annual revenues in the CRA coming in about $450,000 a year. So we're taking less than half of that to invest in this project. Again, it won't affect any operations. It's obviously a project that's eligible. It's obviously a project that was the sole reason that CRAs are developed, to effectuate this type of growth and development in a community. We haven't used the CRA for the last 20 years the way it should have been. We've utilized it to support infrastructure projects throughout the city, but now we're taking this CRA a step further to what it should be, to promote growth and redevelopment in the community. And that's what we're trying to do.
In one portion of it, there's a $50,000 fee that they would pay back to us for removal of bad soil.
Correct. Yeah. So really, we're only going to pay 2.9 for the property because they're giving us $100,000 back to take care of the environmental issues on the one
Yeah.
property.
And is that a static, I mean, that price or the removal, that cost won't change? We are sure that it won't go to 150 or 200 to do
We've
it?
spoken to environmental engineers and have had estimates done on that work, and we're fairly confident we can get done for well below the $100,000 that they're allocating back to us for that.
And then the last question is, will that interfere with our ability to construct the gymnasium? If we spend money doing this, will there be funds available to,
Absolutely. What's the fund balance in the CRA right now?
It's about $1 million.
So, yes, the answer is yes, we could. Now, the question, we can't specifically build a building with CRA funds, correct?
You can't build administrative buildings with CRA money, but you can build, say, a recreational facility, as long as it's in the plan. It has to be in the district, in the plan, and in your budget. I know we had a discussion 2 weeks ago about holding off on the referendum. The initial discussion with the referendum was that the Carver Park facility was not going to be funded with CRA funds. If what you're asking is, does this prevent us from using CRA funds? It does not. It actually helps us generate additional revenue that might help us build that down the road. So I think we're building capacity. We're promoting private investment, and we're bringing dollars into the CRA. That said, it wasn't originally, Carver Park was not going to be built or expanded with CRA funds, but this doesn't prevent that.
But if we use general fund dollars via the referendum to build that facility, that will then free up the CRA dollars for more programmatic activities in the center. So the idea is I don't want to use general fund revenues for programmatic in the parks when I have CRA revenues that are specifically geared for programmatic activities. And the CRA is far less, I don't rely on the CRA funds again for operational costs. So if I can use the CRA monies to do the programmatic things after we use the general fund revenues to build the recreational center, that'll give us more bang for our buck on the programmatic side with the CRA dollars.
and what about the idea of getting businesses and the community to contribute to the cost of the building the gymnasium?
There's nothing to say that we can't do that, and we've already agreed to discuss all of those matters
Okay.
at the beginning of 2021.
All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Done? All right. Mary, has anybody emailed any questions or concerns? Take your time.
I was in my email, and for some reason or other, it's
while
No
she's
longer there.
doing that, I did, Commissioner Moran did mention the letter from Crest.
Yes.
So is there any addressing of those issues that he brought up to
Well, obviously,
clarify?
if we borrow money, we're going to be paying interest.
Yes.
Absolutely, we will have interest.
There's a
But that's
number
already-
of them, but I can't see what they say
But
right now.
that's
Let me
already
look.
been calculated into the debt service pro forma that we put together. The other issue is in terms of us paying a commission, we don't have to pay a commission. We are going to market and sell our own property. So if the buyer of a property is dealing with a real estate agent, then fine, you pay, if you want to pay your agent a commission, you pay your agent a commission. We don't have to pay a commission if we don't want to. Because obviously, if we're not going to list it, we're going to market and sell it ourselves, which is what we can do, basically, since we're the owner. We can market and sell our own property. Tom has enough connections in the commercial real estate community, the development community, that we don't need to pay a commercial developer 10% to sell property that we have. We already have the experience, knowledge, and connections in the development community to do that.
And we are going to make it that available, that everyone will know about it. We're not going to just keep,
We're not
local.
going to keep it a secret.
Mary?
Okay, the first one was from Crest Munsme. He asked that each commissioner respond to the comments that he sent in, that letter that he provided earlier. Daniel DiVinanzo asked that I read the letter that he sent. Mr. Munsme asked, what is the opportunity cost of a unified piece of property? And then he stated that the seller always pays the commission. He also asked how much money has the foundation put back to the city since its inception. And if the CRA defaults, what is the city's liability?
The city wouldn't have any liability, the CRA would have liability because the debt is under.
You need to talk into the
Yeah, well,
mic,
they're
because I
having
do have
trouble
one
hearing you.
comment that they're not hearing you.
The CRA is a separate legal entity from the city of Eustis. The loan will be secured by the property and by debt from the CRA revenues from the CRA board. So there is no general fund obligation, and Mr. Schroth will correct me if I'm going astray there.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
And then Gail Isaac Thomas, where is another $3 million coming from? $3 million for community center, community conference sailing center. Now another $3 million for former Waterman property. That's $6 million. No money should be spent at this time unless it's for the Carver Park gym. Mr. Ashcraft asked about Ron Smite.
Well, let me answer Gail's. The money for the properties is going to be borrowed. We are borrowing $3 million. We're not taking it out of any surplus. It's coming from CRA revenues and not from general fund revenues, which was targeted for the community center and Carver Park Center. So we'll be borrowing $3 million and using less than $200,000 a year in CRA revenues to pay that debt.
And then Mr. DiVinanzo says, hopefully you all got a chance to read my letter earlier today. I want to focus on our future, the downtown core, and the families of our community. The property downtown is essential to our future. Livability, jobs, energy. We have so much potential, existing infrastructure, location relevant to awesome Lake County attractions, Eustis amenities, including an awesome lakefront park on a 7,000-acre lake in proximity to beaches, Orlando, airport, convention, and Central Florida attractions. We all want future generations to want to live and work here. This provides us the opportunity to make Eustis shine again. We have worked hard and accomplished so much. This is our next step.
And you said Mr. Ashcraft had a question.
No, he was commenting about they couldn't hear you because of your mic.
Marie, did you get the letter from Daniel that he sent out earlier today?
Yes,
And-
I have both of them.
And you did receive the one from Crest Munsme as well,
Yes,
correct?
I did.
Thank you, ma'am. Karen, did you receive both letters?
I did.
Emily and Bob?
Yes.
And I did also. So acknowledging that we have received both of those letters and understand exactly what was in those letters, or at least I did. Anything else, Mary, that's,
No, I had a email from someone asking about the commission meeting, and I told them this one was running over.
yes, ma'am. Anybody that's turned in or tuned in for our city commission meeting, this is the CRA meeting for the city of Eustis. We are running over. We're probably going to need another 20 minutes in our CRA meeting, so hopefully by 6:30, we will move into our regular city commission meeting. So,
Mayor, I have a question.
yes, ma'am, Ms.
I
Emily.
was looking, it just caught my attention, on this letter from Crest, he says that you can't sell the property for the purchase price, if you can't sell the property for the purchase price, you're forced to hold the property till December 2024, that it would cost us $389,311 in interest, plus the commission on the sale. Is that?
Well, I mean, what Chris is saying is that obviously if you borrow money and you borrow $3 million, you're going to be paying interest on the money. So what Chris is saying is, well, first off, let's address the commission. We do not have to pay commission if we don't negotiate paying a commission. We will not be listing the property. So if the buyer of the property has a real estate agent and they want to pay the commission, we would negotiate that with the buyer, that they pay their agent any commissions. So that in my opinion is a moot, is a moot point. Obviously, if you borrow money on any amortization, part of what you pay on an annual loan is principal and interest. So, yeah, Cress's analysis is correct, that if we don't sell it in 4 years, part of the money's the $200,000. So in this case, if we made 4 payments on it of about $800,000, part of that will be interest and part of that will be principal. So yes, absolutely, there will be interest cost on it.
But we can't cover it, is what you're saying.
We can cover the payment, more than cover the payment on the $200,000. Absolutely, we're trying to effectuate development, and we're trying to make as much money back on the city to do that.
Anything else, Emily? Any other questions from the commission before we go ahead and move this to a vote?
I just one more thing. I think, Ron, you mentioned about the CRA not having, it's a CRA, it's the, if there's, what kind of commitment does the city have if the CRA defaults, or we default? Was that what the question was just a minute ago? Something about.
Yeah, the question is if for some reason we default on it, which I don't see that happening,
Right.
because obviously the only way the CRA would default is if our revenues fell below our ability to meet the debt service requirement. So I don't see that happening. So I don't see any realistic opportunity for us to default on that.
Right. And the city is still responsible for whatever might happen if that did happen. It'd be out of general fund dollars.
No, it would not.
It would just go.
The CRA is a separate legal entity from the city of Eustis. So the obligations of the CRA would be the CRA's, so there is no clawback to the city in terms of its general fund or other general operating revenues. It's solely based on the CRA revenues. So worst case scenarios, we do default, then the bank forecloses on that, the bank gets the property, and we've lost any principal and interest that we paid on the property. But then again, as I said, I believe the possibility of us defaulting on that property is very slim.
I just want to make sure, and just one more thing if I could. I think Commissioner Lee made a great statement, and you kind of ran around it to 2021 as a gymnasium. If we can make this adjustment in our budget for the CRA for this, we should be able to make an adjustment next week, 2 weeks from now, from the CRA surplus to be able to think about the design for a new gymnasium. I don't want to put this off to 2021. I would like to see.
I'm just going on what the consensus of the commission was at that meeting, that we would have a discussion regarding both of those projects in 2021. We talked about the reasons for doing the referendums, and I think at that point, the majority of the commission felt that the proper.
I think I was part of there too. The only thing is that, I'm sorry.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we said that we would have a conversation about the gym in our May, the first
Okay,
meeting
good.
in May.
That's good.
Once we were all back together and once we were coming back together as a community. And we're hoping that's the way it's going to be. And then that way we could go ahead and start having community meetings and really find out what the will of our community would be. So I think that's what we discussed. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. So that's definitely a conversation once we're back as a whole commission. And then once we have community back, we can start some community meetings and decide which direction we want to go. Okay. Marie, any other questions before we go and call for a vote?
No.
Evan, any other conversation? Evan? Evan gave up on us. Mary, would you read CRA Resolution Number 20-02, or Derek, either one?
You got it.
I got it. CRA Resolution 2002, a resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Eustis, known as the Downtown and East Town Redevelopment Agency of Lake County, Florida, approving and ratifying an option agreement for sale and purchase and making findings and determinations of act and law pursuant to Chapter 163, Part 3 Florida statutes. That should be fact and law.
Board members, before us, we have CRA Resolution Number 20-02. What's the will of this board?
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of resolution number 20-02.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. Any more discussion? Not hearing any. Roll call, please.
Mr. Moran?
Aye.
Ms. Aliberti?
Aye.
Ms. Lee?
Aye.
Ms. LaHoop Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye. Tom, next part of our agenda, please.
You got
We have
20.
another-
Oh, I'm sorry.
2003.
2003. Okay, got it.
There's no discussion. I'll go ahead and read it.
Go ahead, sir.
Resolution 2003, a resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Eustis, known as the Downtown and East Town Redevelopment Agency, Lake County, Florida, approving and ratifying an option agreement for sale and purchase and making findings and determinations of fact and law pursuant to Chapter 163, Part 3 Florida statutes.
Perfect. Board members, before us we have CRA Resolution Number 20-03. What's the will of our board?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second?
Thank you, ma'am. Any discussion? Not hearing any. Roll call, please.
Mr. Moran?
Aye.
Ms. Aliberti?
Aye.
Ms. Lee?
Aye.
Ms. LaHoop Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye. Thank you, folks. Tom?
So you have a copy of the annual report in your packet and a copy of the quarterly report in your packet. If there are any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but in the interest of time.
Oh, I do have one. I noticed on the, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay. On the housing improvement program, there was very little expenditure. I don't understand that part. What's going on there?
They're not getting a lot of people in the door.
We do remember in our discussions when we were meeting about the development and all, and I felt that we probably need to look at another agency also to see if we could have some assistance, because that people should be biting at the bit for this to be able to get their homes secure, and we're not getting that. And who's our representative right now for?
Community action.
I'm not.
They're not.
I think it's. Marie, you're the representative on the community action?
Yes.
They haven't had any meetings either,
See,
so.
I would like to know that we don't let it go by the wayside, because it'll look like a failed project. We have all these goals in mind, and we have to monitor that and not allow it to move forward. I mean, not allow it to falter, because so much of that money is available, and it could help some folks who need those basics.
Well, what we can do is after the world opens up again, we can do a major kickoff again on the program, working with the Community Action Agency to market that. And you know what, I'll have Christina put out a little Facebook blurb tomorrow about it and see if we can generate some interest in it.
And Bob, I have concerns with it as well. I have someone that went down for one of those loans. Now, they ended up making, I think, about $1,000 too much a year to apply for, or to come in with it. However, when they went in, they were told they did not meet any of the criteria for it. They didn't live in the right area.
Oh.
And it wasn't until I got involved and explained to them exactly that they were in the CRA, that they did fit the criteria, other than, that's when they started talking to me. They had to mention that I was involved before they would actually talk to them.
Yeah.
So I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I think we need oversight real quick.
I'll get with them tomorrow and see where we're at.
I mean, I didn't, you know as well, you and Tom both know, that I've been at this since 2016, trying to do this. And to let it falter in possibly my last year here, it would be sad to let that go, because I'm not so sure I know people have voted for it, but there's nobody that's near and dear to me.
Well, I mean, the issue is, just because we had a slow start on it, it doesn't mean that those funds couldn't be carried over next year and we extend the project out. So it doesn't mean, if we don't finish that project this fiscal year, it doesn't mean that you can't reauthorize those funds to carry
Right,
over.
right, okay.
So
Yeah.
no, that's, just because we're not done this fiscal year doesn't mean the project dies. So we can
I'd like to see it happen this year.
understand.
I would like to request or find out if it would be possible, why can't they come before us and let us know what they're doing?
Yeah.
I can-
Give us updates, and I haven't seen any kind of advertisement about it, or letting people know, or making an awareness of it, of the program, so. I would like to see more.
I'll get with Michael tomorrow.
Okay.
Can one of us be there with you, just maybe myself?
Let me see if he's available, and if Marie
You and I
wants to be.
both had experience in it, and we know what's going on, so
No, that's fine.
let's you and I maybe talk with him?
Yeah, that's fine. Let me reach out to him
Okay.
and see if he's available tomorrow.
Yeah, or next week. I'm fine.
That's fine.
Marie, did you have a comment on this?
No, I had only been to 2 meetings, and then they've all been canceled, so, yeah, we can go ahead and,
That's what I'm afraid of.
look at it and get with them and see, you can see what's going on our end first,
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
okay?
All right. Tom?
Please feel free to review both reports, the annual report and the quarterly report. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Anyone have questions of Tom right now before we adjourn this meeting?
No, thank you.
Marie, anything else, ma'am, for the CRA?
No.
All right, folks. Thanks for bearing with us. We're going to adjourn the CRA meeting. We're probably going to need about a 5-minute turnaround, and then we will start the city commission meeting. We're adjourned.
Okay.
Good job. Answered all those questions that people have out there, so that's a great job.